They broke up. Rob posted revenge porn, sex video of Alicia to Twitter. Alicia, do you know the defendant, Robert Kiltz?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain your relationship to him?
I am Robert's ex-girlfriend.
Rob has been a heroin addict for years, although we met in recovery back then.
What kind of drug use by Mr. Kiltz do you observe?
Heroin.
My client admits that he used alcohol and marijuana alongside mom. He rarely used if she wasn't. They used together.
This matter of Jane Ellis versus Robert Kiltz. This is the date and time set for a hearing on plaintiff's emergency ex parte motion regarding custody and plaintiff's objection to order for custody, support, and parenting time. Hearing today via Zoom, there being no objections, is the plaintiff, Mallory Ellis. The defendant, Robert Kiltz, has failed to appear. Note for the record that a defendant also failed to appear at the status conference for this case, and defendant also failed to appear at mediation as ordered in this case. And defendant has been defaulted in this case as well. And Ms. Ellis, did you have any questions prepared for Ms. Roberts?
I do have some questions. Would you like me to start with questions for witness or my statement?
Questions for witness?
Okay. Do you know the defendant, Robert Kiltz?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain your relationship to him?
I am Robert's ex-girlfriend.
Okay. How long did you guys date?
We dated for about 9 months.
9 months. During that period in the 9 months, did you witness any illegal activities?
Illegal activities. I mean, I don't know if I would say I really witnessed them. I mean, yes, drug use, yes, that's an illegal activity. So.
Okay. What was the dynamic between you two towards the end of your relationship? Was there any illegal activities during that period?
Yeah. So Robert actually stole a hefty amount of cash money from me. And he ended up posting nude pictures of me online, which I currently have a case against him for.
Okay. And what city is that out of?
That is out of Grand Rapids, so Kent County.
Kent County. Okay. Was Robert's behavior ever aggressive towards you?
Yes.
Or...
Yes. He was very aggressive. A lot of verbal abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, a lot of, and all taking place in front of my child, a lot of screaming, slamming doors, breaking things.
How old is your child?
My daughter is 4.
She's 4. Okay. Alicia, how has this affected you?
Well, it's definitely given me a lot of anxiety, depression. I've actually had to seek out therapy due to all of the emotional distress that the entire relationship has caused me. And it's affected my trust for, a lot of my partners in the future.
Okay. That's all the questioning that I have for Alicia.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts, what kind of drug use by Mr. Kiltz do you observe?
I had some suspicions when we began dating and saw some signs, and I confronted him on it quite a bit, and he would not admit to it until I actually found drugs on his person, and I found paraphernalia in my bathroom. He had also left a Xanax in my bed at one point, which my daughter could have easily taken and swallowed if I had not found it before she did.
And I know that you were in a relationship for, was it 9 months?
Yes.
And so what month and year, kind of what timeline or duration are we talking about?
So we began dating November of 2022, and then we split up in August of 2023.
Okay, thank you. All right,
yes.
Ms. Ellis, any other questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Roberts. You're excused. You can go ahead and log off.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alicia.
Bye-bye.
And Ms. Ellis, did you have a chance to print off that written statement that you'd prepared?
Yes, I have it here.
Okay. Could you go ahead and just read? I know it's long, but probably the best thing to do would be to read that into the record at this time, if that's okay.
I would appreciate that. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of let you know who Kyrie and I are and what it looks like every day for us.
Right.
Kyrie is a loving, wild, intelligent 4-year-old boy who loves his dog, jumping on the bed, hugs and kisses, Play-Doh, and doing chores on the farm with the animals. He's a very picky eater. He only likes macaroni and cheese, French toast sticks, spaghetti, pizza, waffles, and crackers. He only drinks milk or water, no juices or sodas. Kyrie doesn't like certain textures in his mouth or on his hands, as he displays some sensory issues. Kyrie attends early childhood special education at Silver Lake Elementary School and is supported by speech therapy, occupational therapy, and social work. He gets on the bus at 11:15 every day, Monday through Thursday, and gets home around 3:30. So mornings are rough for Kyrie because he'd rather stay at home and play than go to school. Some days he absolutely hates wearing jeans and would prefer wearing something softer like sweatpants. A lot of mornings he would rather eat macaroni and cheese for breakfast than actual breakfast foods. On these types of days, Kyrie's nervous system can need a little extra love and support. Transitions can be very hard for him, and he works particularly well with structure and schedule. Kyrie was diagnosed with delayed speech by his physician, Sarah Smith, at Crystal Lake Medical Center in Traverse City on August 28th, 2023. Although he was in early childhood special education at Eastern Elementary School last year, this year he is attending the same program at Silver Lake Elementary. Kyrie needs some extra support, so I took him to see Sarah for a referral for occupational and food therapy. I fear he's not getting enough nutrition from the foods he is willing to eat, and I know this can affect his growth and development. We began occupational therapy with Megan Hamlin at Making Strides Therapeutic Services with an evaluation that took place on September 11th, 2023, and he has attended almost every Monday since then for 45-minute each session. I have attached progress notes to the original evaluation forms in my exhibit. It took Kyrie some time to warm up to the new appointment every week as we would pull into the driveway and he would begin to whimper. He would not walk on his own to the barn. I would have to carry him in as he clung on to me until he felt safe enough to let go. Today, he's ready and aware that we're going to play with Miss Megan and looks forward to getting into the barn to play with his favorite ball and monkey toys. Kyrie has developed his inner clock that tells him when it's time to get up and go and catch the bus for school. So he's adjusting to this new schedule very well. While Kyrie's dad and I were breaking up, the environment was very toxic. I myself was stuck in a fawn and freeze mode, and there was a lot of yelling by Kyrie's dad. Kyrie is really uncomfortable around loud yelling today. He gets upset and begins to cry, and this is where I insert some extra love and hugs to soothe his nervous system to a regulated state. Kyrie doesn't see his dad very often at all, and when he does, he is uncomfortable. Sometimes he'll hide his face and ignore him, and he won't give him love and affection. Eventually, he will warm up to him and play with him, but he's still distant. He does not show Rob the affection like he does with me because he doesn't have that bond with him. Rob is not capable of reading Kyrie's body language to be able to notice if he is uncomfortable and therefore cannot provide safe space for Kyrie to adjust. Rob also does not understand that Kyrie has special needs and does not support him going into occupational therapy financially and fundamentally. Since Kyrie has started the special programs, he has progressed in areas that he should have already reached at this age. He's been sleeping in his own bed for months now. After his nighttime bath routine, he looks at me and says night-night because he knows it's time for bed. I lay in bed with him until he falls asleep, which is about 20-minute time period. And previous to this, Kyrie has slept with me in my bed. He's displaying some signs of potty training. He used to do this when we lived in Grand Rapids, but regressed as this was during the stress times when we lived with his dad. He has a miniature potty that sits on the floor, and before the bath, he takes off his clothes and sits on the potty and is able to go. Since he won't eat any candy and doesn't like any foods as a treat, we use a sticker star chart to mark his progress. And Kyrie likes to put the stickers on the little boy that I drew on the chart. Kyrie's been saying his ABCs and counts to 10 for about 1.5 years now. He lines the letters up on the refrigerator, and if you move them out of place, he's very strict on his organization and patterns and has to fix the letters. Since Kyrie's dad and I broke up in 2021, life has not been easy. Rob has only provided financial support a few times, a few packs of diapers, and we split the cost of buying him a load of clothes back in August 23. He refuses to comply with child support and child care orders that were put in place on June 30th, 2023 by Judge Jennifer Witten. Rob attended the first IEP that was held on December 2nd in 2022, but has not been present for any doctor's appointments, therapy, or the most recent IEP meeting on November 20th. He's never been to any of his schools to meet the teachers or see what his day looks like, and also has not attended any conferences. Since Kyrie is only in school from 12 to 3:20 Monday through Thursday, I'm unable to work during the day. There is an affordable childcare around those hours that work with the schedule, so I'm limited to working at night in a restaurant. I have worked at VI Grill in Suttons Bay since January 22, and Kyrie has a babysitter that lives in Northport. So at this point, we're stuck in this schedule until Kyrie can go to school full time or starts talking. His babysitter Samantha has 5 kids that she shares with her husband, who I'm working with. That's how I found her. They have a child who was speech delayed when he was younger. So Samantha has great experience with what Kyrie struggles with. He enjoys going to the house to play with their kids and animals. Every time I walk in the house to pick him up, she's on the floor playing with him. She can read his body language and is able to anticipate his needs. I'm so grateful I've found someone who is a great fit for Kyrie and takes care of him with the same amount of love that she has for her own child. This is a big reason I don't force him to go somewhere else that he's unfamiliar and uncomfortable with. I pay Samantha $30 every shift I work and $60 when I work a double. During the summer, my schedule is 6 days a week, Monday through Thursday nights, and Friday and Saturdays are doubles. In the off season, I work 5 to 6 nights a week and typically no doubles. Some weekends, my mom is able to take Kyrie, so I'm able to save the cost of childcare. Kyrie has developed a special relationship with my mom and especially my stepdad. They live on the farm outside of Gaylord and have a lot of horses. They even got Kyrie a little pony. Kyrie loves to go out and brush his pony and ride the gator and do chores with my stepdad. He's gotten really good at throwing flakes of hay off the gator to feed the horses. He loves it so much, they got him a mini Power Wheels gator so he can drive by himself. Kyrie's so happy when he's up on the farm. They provide strict structure and new avenues for growth. Rob has a long criminal history, and current felony charges for drugs and a weapon, as well as warrants issued for violation of bond as he picked up a new obscenity charge in August of 23.
And what we're going to do is let's stop right there. So you might want to make a little note to pick up, but just a couple questions at this point. So, okay. So just to be clear, Kyrie is not vocal yet, correct?
Correct.
So one of the concerns is that he's, really unable to explain, he would be unable to explain what has occurred during parenting time with the other parent, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it sounds like Mr. Kiltz has not had much contact, if any, with Kyrie since the order was issued. Am I correct in understanding that?
The last in-person contact Rob had with Kyrie was back in August. I drove Kyrie down to Grand Rapids to see Rob. Since then, there has been some FaceTime videos that I've allowed during the day, in the morning before school. Although it got to a point where I felt like that was kind of throwing Kyrie off for his, structure of getting ready for school, getting on the bus. He's not attentive to the screen during FaceTimes.
Okay. So, but was Mr. Kiltz appropriate during the FaceTimes that have occurred?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's just the weekdays are not good days for that.
Correct. Yeah, it just, I could note, I sensed that it was throwing him off.
All right. And then, your testimony about Mr. Kiltz having a long criminal history and current felony charges for drugs and a weapon, as well as warrants issued for violation of bond and a new obscenity charge. What's the source of those allegations? How do you know that?
So I was informed by a friend of mine who was pretty savvy with the government websites, like the court websites in Grand Rapids. And she dug into it a little bit and was able to show me the charges. From the 4 felony charges, it's 2 uncontrolled substance, a weapon, and a habitual. And so I kind of been following, throughout the year, following that and just looking at the notes. And it looks like he dropped off in about July or August from taking care of those responsibilities and meeting with the court appointments and all of that.
And that would correspond to his lack of participation in this case. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And it looks like you also went on to the state of Michigan Internet Criminal History Access Tool, or iChat. And
Yes.
what did you obtain through that source?
I went on iChat and downloaded his current criminal history. It goes back to 2014. It's got quite a bit of, it goes back to 2010. There's domestic violence charges. There's
All right, so one moment, let me see if I can pull that up. I'll be right with you.
Okay, sure.
iChat results have Mr. Kiltz birth date, so I'm going to momentarily stop the live stream on that account. One moment. The iChat criminal history for Mr. Kiltz, it does correspond to Miss Ellis's testimony. And Miss Ellis, you may pick back up with your statement. I think you left off with he refuses to go to court.
Yes. He refuses to go to court and take care of his responsibilities. He has poor mental health and childhood trauma that he refuses to heal. When he gets depressed, he turns to drugs. Rob has been a heroin addict for years. Although we met in recovery back then, I have never seen him struggle with drugs. In our years of dating, he began to struggle, and I tried endlessly to get him help, and he refuses and denies needing help. When he is using drugs, his behaviors change drastically. He becomes aggressive and irritable. His body language becomes erratic, and he becomes completely unaware of his surroundings, as well as extreme paranoia. One time we were leaving the house, and Rob was in such a hurry, he bumped Kyrie and he fell down the stairs to the basement. It was an accident, and of course, Rob felt horrible. However, had he not been on drugs, I believe this kind of stuff would happen. The last overnight visit Kyrie has had with his dad was in September of 22. There was an incident that took place in my home after Rob brought him back for the weekend visit. He had him over the weekend in Grand Rapids while he was staying with some friends who I later learned are drug users as well, who have lost their child. She was taken by the state, excuse me. I allowed Rob to stay in my house a few days so he could have some extra time with Kyrie. One night he watched him while I went to work. He stopped responding to my text around 6 p.m. that night, and when I got home, Rob was drug sick in my bathtub, and Kyrie was naked, crying on the outside of the bathtub. Rob was so sick he was unable to take care of Kyrie. And later that night, I found needles in Kyrie's room on the floor under his crash pad, as well as messages on his phone from someone that he was out of shit and getting sick. The next day, I made Rob leave and refused to let him take Kyrie overnight after that, as well as be alone with Kyrie. There's been many times that I would allow Rob to come and visit Kyrie at our house so he could be in his own safe space. There are also many times in that duration that I found more needles and paraphernalia, and since then I've not allowed him in my home. It has gotten to the point that even coming to our house has been unsafe and dangerous for both Kyrie's mental health and mine. Since I began this custody case in February of 23, Rob has lied about where he resides.
And let's just stick a point in that. So let's take a look at that. So right now, the address that the court has been using for Mr. Kiltz is 2532 Garfield Street. Do you believe that that's still where he resides, or do you not know?
I don't believe he ever resided there. That's his brother's home.
But he was receiving mail there. Is that a possibility?
There is a pile of mail there, but he has not received any of it. He doesn't go there. So
just note for the record that a judgment of support was entered in this case on June 30th of this year. In that judgment, the court indicated that defendant Kiltz had appeared for a hearing held on June 30th which was the hearing that resulted in the judgment of support. And that judgment listed Mr. Kiltz's address as the 2532 Garfield Street address. That's the address that's been utilized for defendant throughout this case, and there's no indication that defendant has ever requested a change of that address. So defendant's on notice that that's where all the mail was going. Okay, please continue.
Okay. He's given the courts the address of his brother's house while he was telling me he was homeless, but was actually living with his now ex-girlfriend. The last time I mentioned anything about this case to him was referring to the interview with a friend of the court. He was unaware that there was such a date, but was able to attend the interview. I explained this to the caseworker, but I also didn't want to come off as bashing the dad, so I did refrain from some information, which I now regret. The caseworker granted him overnight visitations. How could this be? He's homeless, currently using drugs, felony charges. He's fleeing from an outstanding warrants. And in the recent weeks, it has been brought to my attention he has been using heroin and has been seen twice selling meth near Sheridan outside of Grand Rapids. The last instance he was seen selling drugs, he was also seen stealing from a gas station in which the attendant was unable to catch him. The girlfriend he was living with is a single mother of a 4-year-old little girl. His ex, Alicia, has described witnessing Rob under the influence of drugs, aggressive actions, and irresponsible behaviors. Rob has gone as far as being violent towards Alicia and has left marks that have turned to scars. All of these behaviors have been presented in front of the little girl. When they broke up, Rob posted revenge porn, sex video of Alicia to Twitter. This is where the obscenity charge comes from. She's currently trying to serve him with the PPO, although they're unable to find him to serve. She is my witness today to explain those instances firsthand. When Rob is unhappy with the situation he has landed himself in, he places blame on me. He goes off on these long texts, calling me names, threatening to hurt those who are around Kyrie, especially if it may be another man. This has become harassment and an attack on my mental health, which in return affects Kyrie. I've had to set up a structured block on my phone where I block him, and every Sunday morning I unblock him until 6 p.m. that night.
Are you still doing that?
Yes, I have.
That's so Mr. Kiltz can have contact with Kyrie?
Yes, to offer a FaceTime video. Where I block him, this is his time to call and video chat with Kyrie. Although since this started on October 6th, Rob has neglected to initiate any visits. There's been a few conversations through text and email since, but even then, he does not ask to see Kyrie or how he's doing, just more harassment. Before this custody process has begun, I've diligently tried to facilitate in-person and on-video visits. Once there were orders put in place for visitations, I went to the meet spot in Reed City at the Michigan State Police Post, and he never showed. Since then, I have continued to cooperate. However, Rob has been unable to meet any of these opportunities, especially in a responsible, reliable, consistent manner. I do not allow Rob to be around Kyrie or see Kyrie while he is under the influence. This is damaging to Kyrie's mental health, his nervous system, and progress to development. I want Kyrie to have his dad in his life, but the way Rob is living his life, it is dangerous to our son. He needs to get rehabilitation and partake in co-parenting classes as well as parenting classes of his own to better equip himself with parenting skills. And until that takes place, I'm requesting sole legal and physical custody with limited supervised visits with drug testing submitted prior to the visit. If Rob can show he's capable of providing a safe and loving environment for Kyrie while upholding a healthy lifestyle, I'm more than willing to work with him to build a system that's good for all of us, especially Kyrie. Kyrie needs consistency, love and awareness, positive influence, and support to his special needs. At this time, I'm the only parent who is capable of providing this to our son. I have a full-time job, 9 years of consistent consecutive sobriety. I've been in therapy once a week for over a year, trying to heal my own nervous system and trauma so I can show up for Kyrie and be the best mom I can. I take him to all of his therapy appointments as well as being involved with his school. I bathe, feed, and clothe Kyrie. I give him love and play and anything else he needs. I am the parent who suits up and shows up for this child, and I will protect him with everything in me. Thank you for providing me a safe time and space to express my concerns and attempts to keeping my child safe and healthy.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. That was a very informative and thoughtful statement. You also submitted some documents regarding the IEP, is that correct?
Yes, we just recently had the latest IEP appointment on November 20th and met with the whole team, speech therapist, occupational therapist, the teacher, as well as somebody from an administrator from the next school that he will be moving into next year.
And I mean, would you agree that that IEP basically kind of supports the statements that you've made regarding, you know, Kyrie's current state of development and the delays that are occurring at this time?
Absolutely. It touches on things with his like social participation, body and awareness, his routine, his lack of speech, his support from all of the therapists, the whole team, the social and emotional domain. It touches on his eating habits. It describes strides that he's made since our last IEP meeting that took place about a year ago. And then it also touches on goals. I have shared this information with his therapist so we can all work together and be on the same team and support Kyrie individually in every area that we can. It also determines that he is eligible for special education. And my next steps with this is to push for autism screening with the doctor and in school so that it can open up more doors for resources and support for him.
Excellent. Okay. The court will receive the IEP documents as well as the state of Michigan ICHAT criminal background into evidence at this time. Were there any other documents, Ms. Ellis? I didn't see any other documents. Were there that?
Yes. As you stated before, I've provided the formula that the friend of the court has calculated. This shows for child support and child care. So the numbers are in there as it was verified by his employer at the time that he was working 20 hours a week or 40 hours a week at $20 an hour. That's how they got their calculations. The next piece that I provided was the evaluation from the occupational therapist.
And before we get to that, just on the child support issue, the numbers that were used by the friend of the court, were those numbers wrong?
No, not
Okay.
to my understanding. They said that they came up with these numbers based off of what the employer had verified.
Okay. And but you haven't gotten any child support since that order was issued. Is that what I'm to understand?
Correct. I've never received any child support.
Okay.
And this is based off of 0 overnight visits.
Okay. Next.
Okay, so we've got the occupational therapy evaluation performed by Megan Hamlin with Making Strides Therapeutic Services. We did an hour and a half. She observed a lot of his behaviors and tried to interact with him and get a feel for, where he lacks and what he needs.
And I'm able to see that now. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. That'll be received in the evidence as well.
Okay. I have also, since that original evaluation has taken place, I requested kind of an update and some notes from the therapist, and she was able to provide that for me in an email, which I sent a screenshot. I have submitted a screenshot of that. So it kind of gives a little bit of information, just, how is he doing and my observations since, the first day. And it's only been going on 3 months now. So this is kind of sooner than she prefers to critique. But she was able to provide some notes for me.
Okay, I can see those as well. Those will be received. Thank you.
Great. And that concludes everything that I have as evidence.
Okay. So thank you very much for all of that information. Well, all right. This is Ellis v. Kiltz, file number 23-17208-DS. This has been a hearing on plaintiff's emergency ex parte motion regarding custody and plaintiff's objection to order for support and parenting time. The parties in this case are the parents of one minor child, Kyrie, who was 4 years old. And in this case, there was an order for custody support and parenting time that was issued, from which plaintiff has filed her objection. Take a look at that. That order was entered on August 3rd, 2023. It awarded the parties joint legal custody and plaintiff primary physical custody with a graduated schedule of parenting time for defendant, which was eventually going to result in parenting time with the minor child every other weekend. That order was entered in August. Mr. Kiltz has not really at all followed through with that order. He's never shown up to the location where the parenting time exchanges were supposed to occur. He was really essentially been out of contact with plaintiffs since entry of the order and even prior to that. So at this point, there's really no contact or communication, or at least very limited contact or communication happening between Mr. Kiltz and the minor child. Defendant has not had any kind of overnight visitation with the child since I believe it was September of 2022, thereabouts. At this point, the child is completely reliant on plaintiff for all of his needs, and she's working very hard to meet those needs, and they're fairly extensive based on the testimony and the documents received. And so at this point, the court has to consider a couple things. First of all, an initial order for custody support and parenting time without an evidentiary hearing is not a quote previous judgment or order unquote. Therefore, no change of circumstances needs to be shown to justify a permanent custody arrangement different from that in the initial order. Instead, the test will be whether a differing custody arrangement is in the best interest of the child. A court cannot enter a new custody order or amend an existing custody order without first determining if there's an established custodial environment. In this case, based on the testimony and documents received, the child has an established custodial environment solely with plaintiff. Defendant, to the extent that he's had contact with Kyrie, he's been an unsafe presence for the child for reasons that will be described later. He's not been a consistent presence. He's been certainly not available for any of the various therapy appointments or other appointments that the child has had over the past year, whether this is because a defendant is not interested in being involved in this capacity, or because he's too wrapped up in his own substance abuse and legal troubles is unclear. But in any event, there is no evidence that the child is relied in any way on defendant for any kind of necessities or guidance or discipline or parental guidance. So at this point, the plaintiff is asking for an order for sole legal and sole physical custody with supervised parenting time for defendant. Because the child does not have an established custodial environment with the defendant, the plaintiff's burden of proof is the preponderance of the evidence standard. The court will consider the evidence under all the best interest factors in light of that burden of proof. The best interest factors are listed at MCL 722.23. And obviously, the defendant failed to appear today based on the evidence, the documents received. Plaintiff is strongly favored under all of the best interest factors. She read from a statement that was also received by the court, and that statement provided some history on the case. And, plaintiff has been very involved with this child, with early childhood special education, speech therapy, occupational therapy, social work, getting a diagnosis through a primary care physician. Also indicated that she'll be looking into, seeing if there's a need for a diagnosis for autism. She's been involved with IEPs. She's been involved with all the therapists. And this is a case where the minor child is, due to delays, is not vocal. Therefore, there are concerns regarding this child's ability to relay any kind of safety concerns in the care of the other parent. This is a case where the child also has sensory issues, has an extreme need for consistency, has an extreme aversion to slamming things or yelling. And these kinds of disruptive behaviors historically are behaviors that have been engaged in by defendant. Defendant is an abuser. He's been abusive towards Miss Ellis. He's also been abusive towards Miss Roberts, his former significant other, who also testified today. He's been abusive and disruptive in the presence of both Kyrie and in the presence of Miss Roberts' 4-year-old child. Certainly, domestic violence has an extremely profound and damaging effect on young children. That's alone a safety issue. But on top of that, there was testimony today from plaintiff that when she, in September of 2022, the occasion of the most recent overnight visitation for defendant. By way of background, defendant has long struggled with substance abuse issues. In September of 2022, plaintiff left Kyrie with him because she had to work at night. She is a server in a restaurant. She works evening hours. And the defendant appears to have been using illegal substances, possibly heroin, possibly something else, while taking care of this very young child during the evening in September 2022. He was found, quote unquote, drug sick by plaintiff in a bathtub. The child was naked, crying on the outside of the tub. Defendant was so sick he wasn't even able to take care of Kyrie. That night, needles were found in Kyrie's room on the floor. Defendant had left messages on his phone to someone that he was, essentially out of drugs and getting sick. So there's a multitude of safety issues. Defendant is currently facing charges, I believe, in the 17th Circuit Court based on the state of Michigan iChat records. It looked like there were 3 counts, all drug-related felony counts for possession of methamphetamine, cocaine, or other illegal substances. Based on the testimony, defendant has failed to participate or appear in those criminal matters down in Kent County. Also, he's facing an obscenity charge for posting, nude videos of other third parties, including Miss Roberts, on the internet. And defendants failed to participate in this case. Although those are extreme safety issues, which are only magnified by the special needs of the child in this case, and defendants' lack of participation with any of the therapists that this child is involved with to understand this child's needs. According to plaintiff, defendant has rejected the idea that Kyrie even has these needs. Defendant otherwise has provided little to no support for Miss Ellis, either financially or with any kind of in-kind support. So for all those reasons, and based on all of the testimony, the court finds that there's clear and convincing evidence that the best interest factors favor plaintiff's requested relief. The court has to consider also any additional factors under MCL 722.27A. 7A is the existence of any special circumstances or needs of the child. Again, this is a case where the child, although 4 years old, is not yet vocal. He's delayed in many aspects, and so that creates additional safety issues. And the child has an extreme need for consistency and for stability, for calmness. That's something that plaintiff can provide and that defendant cannot provide, at least at this time, based on the evidence. Also, 722.27A 7C is the reasonable likelihood or of abuse or neglect of the child during parenting time. The court finds that based on the testimony and the incident that occurred in September of last year with defendant when he was left alone with the child and his use of drugs, and the evidence regarding his continued drug abuse and instability at this time, that it's more likely than not that Kyrie would be abused or neglected if left unsupervised in defendant's care. So for all those reasons, the court is going to order that plaintiff be awarded sole legal custody, sole physical custody. The issue of child support will be referred to the front of the court for review and recommendation consistent with this opinion. The defendant will be credited with 0 overnights for the updated child support calculation. The effective date for the revised child support calculation will be, one moment. The effective date for the new support order will be August 3rd, 2023, because that's the date of the existing order for custody, support, and parenting time. One moment, please. Defendant will receive supervised parenting time once each month at Family Supportive Services in Cadillac, Michigan. Their telephone number is 231-846-4783. Both parties are to immediately contact Family Supportive Services for any necessary intakes. Defendant will pay 100% of the cost for supervised visitation through Family Supportive Services. Visits shall increase to 2 times per month upon completion of 6 consecutive monthly visits. As a condition of being able to file a motion to expand his parenting time, defendant must complete at least 6 months of outpatient substance abuse counseling or successfully complete an inpatient program of at least 21 days duration. If defendant completes 12 consecutive visits and the required counseling program, he may file a motion to expand his parenting time. The court is not ordering defendant to submit to drug screens at this time because the court is confident that the staff at Family Supportive Services will end any visit in the event that defendant is acting in an intoxicated or unstable manner. And the court also is taking into account the additional cost that defendant will have to pay to Family Supportive Services for the cost of supervised parenting time. Therefore, the court finds that having an additional cost to defendant for drug screens at this time would be unduly prejudicial. I will issue a referee recommendation in order. It will be submitted to Judge Whitten to be signed. Ms. Ellis, you'll be able to file an objection to my recommendation and have a hearing on this in front of Judge Whitten, provided you file your objection within 21 days of the date of my recommendation. And do you have any questions today regarding the order?
I don't have any questions. If I may insert one comment.
Yes.
The information that I was provided on the obscenity charge can be found on the 17th District Circuit Court.
17th Circuit Court?
Out of Kent County. It does not reflect on the iChat. I reached out and they said something because he had warrants. I don't really find that accurate. I mean, he does have the warrants, but it is in the court system online.
Okay. And you've certainly submitted a very comprehensive case today. So thank you for that. And that will conclude our hearing.
We moved into a new home with my grandmother. I found out that he was having an affair with my mother, who was also living with us. My mother was on probation at the time and was living with all of us. She was told by CPS that since she was a felon, that she should not be around Angel without parental supervision. However, Angel would leave Angel with her most of the time during his parenting time. Around September 2022, I moved out of my grandmother's home and got an apartment for myself and Angel with my own funding. Around October 10th, 2022, Noah and my grandmother had an altercation in which he grabbed her and she slapped him. My grandmother told him to get out of the house. He moved out on January 1st, 2023, along with my mother. They are still together at this time. I have many conversations with one of Noah's underage girls with whom